Good morning, everyone. My name is Rasif, and this is Claire, and today we're going to present our proposed sustainability plan for the city of Calgary called Calgary and Beyond, the 2050 Sustainability Plan. So to start off by giving an overview of the city, Calgary is the largest city in the province of Alberta and also the third largest in Canada. It has a current population of over 1.2 million people and is predicted to have a growth of over 1.3 million in the next 6 years from its 2010 base level, which brings us to a projected total population of slightly over 2 million people in 2050. So in terms of the sustainability measures for the city, Calgary has produced an environmental health and safety scorecard that shows their progress towards their sustainability for the current year. For example, they made a 62% reduction in energy use for home appliances. Also, they've retrofitted LED and LED certified design infrastructure such as street lamps and solar panels throughout the city. In addition, the city also implemented green spaces, planted over 9,400 trees, and recycled over 1,100 tons of recyclable materials in 2017. So in addition to the scorecard, the city also has current initiatives to monitor their progress for their sustainability goals. The main one is called Imagine Calgary, which is a 100-year vision for the city and how they're going to improve their sustainability targets in different sectors. It has 114 targets, which I'm not going to mention in this presentation because it's too much. Based on the Imagine Calgary, the main plan, as I already said, the city implemented the Calgary Transportation Plan, or the CTP. This is for the whole transportation network in general, and also the Route Ahead Plan, which is for the transit sector of the city that looks over the next 50 or 60 years. For land use and building designs, the city developed a municipal development plan, and to monitor the progress every 5 years, the city develops like the 2020 Sustainable Duration, the 2025 one, and so on. And for budget and economic sectors, the city has a framework for growth and change plan in progress.
So in terms of city's 2050 vision, so they are to create a compact city form with the support of mixed land uses and public transit networks, which substantially operate on renewable energy sources. So the inspiration that we drew upon are firstly from Urban Design Theories by Jane Jacob, where she promotes alternative transit modes. And then we also looked at John and Nancy Todd, where they encourage the use of ecological elements in urban design. And from a city policy and design perspective, we looked at different jurisdictions, and then the ones that we saw were the most fitting are Toronto's Zero Emission Building Framework, Car-Free Urban Zone in Dublin, and also Alberta's 30 by 30 renewable target, which is to achieve 30% renewable by the year of 2030. So from a building perspective, the strategies that we use to reduce energy use and to increase energy efficiency within the buildings include green roofs, efficient thermal insulation, Energy Star rated appliances, solar water heater, energy recovery ventilation system. So altogether, these technologies are approximately to achieve a 30% energy savings. So the table below shows the 2017 and 2050 required housing units and associated energy use. The energy increase is represented by 6.6%, which is to support 91% additional housing from 2017 to 2050.
So in terms of the transportation sector for Calgary in 2050, we projected the VKT to be over 30 billion. And based on that number, we proposed the modal share to be 66% of private vehicles, 14% public transit, and 20% active transportation. For the public transit sector, we recommended that the city have a total of 2,381 buses and 436 light rail vehicles in order to meet the demands of the growing populace. And for the private transportation sector, we recommended that 7% of the diesel fuel-powered vehicles be converted into electric vehicles, or EVs, and also that the city implements the zero emission vehicle, or the ZEV standard, which was first implemented in the city of Quebec. What it does is it gives credits to automobile makers to make more sustainable and energy efficient cars. For the active transportation sector, we suggested the city to implement pedestrian and bicycle routes, as well as bicycle parking facilities within 400 meters of each major activity center in the city.
From a land use and neighborhood design perspective, we looked at the city's current land use plan and also some of the challenges that the city is facing right now. And then we came up with 4 planning principles, namely compactness, mixed land uses, connectivity, and natural environment. So the map on the right shows the current land planning in the city, and also some of the changes proposed by the city. So on the top of that, we proposed more green spaces on the outskirts of the city, which are shaded in green, and also more transit routes extending outward from the city center, crossing some of the major neighborhoods within the city. So on a neighborhood design level, we calculated the density in 2050 and compared that with 2017 baseline. So depending on the increase and decrease of density of population, we came up with our strategies accordingly depending on the land use type. So on the map, on the graph on the right, the top graph shows a typical Calgarian neighborhood design. And then on the bottom, it shows our design, which incorporates more green spaces, and the streets are more grid-like, which promote more pedestrian and transit-friendly street pattern. So on the energy perspective, we calculate the 2017 total energy use, which is 115,000 gigawatt hour, and the 2050 number is 36,000 gigawatt hour. So in addition to the energy reduction, we also proposed changes to the energy mix. So this way it is more renewable based. For example, for transportation, we reduce the use for gasoline and diesel and replace that by grid electricity and also off-grid solar microgrids. For residential, we eliminate the use of natural gas and replace that by slightly higher grid electricity, which is renewable based, and also mainly supplied by off-grid solar microgrids and BIPV, which stands for Building Integrated Photovoltaic. And for commercial and industrial, we also reduce the use of grid electricity and natural gas and replace that mainly by off-grid solar microgrids and BIPV.
So for the water management sector in Calgary, currently the city has 2 water treatment plants that provide water to the north and south of the city. Northern and southern part of the city, they have a combined capacity of over 346,000 megaliters. They mainly take water from the Bow and Elbow rivers, which are the 2 main rivers that flow throughout the city, along with getting some water from the annual precipitation that the city receives. We did not suggest any new implementations to the infrastructure, since this would be enough to meet the 2050 water demands of the growing population. 2050, that would be over 303,000 megaliters. However, for the stormwater management of the city, currently the city has 60,000 storm drains and 150 storage ponds. That seems like a lot, but it's apparently it can only handle 80% of the stormwater that the city receives. So in order to handle the rest 20%, or to store the rest 20%, we proposed some infrastructure designs for the city, such as rain barrels, which are rainwater storage tanks that can be installed on top of buildings and other infrastructures, as well as urban green designs that are able to capture water, such as urban tree canopies, more green spaces, permeable pavers, and green roofs. The diagram to the middle shows like how it can be achieved through using urban tree canopies, and the diagram to the bottom shows how it will look like as a vision for 2015 in Calgary. So for the wastewater management in 2050, currently the city has 3 wastewater treatment plants, have a combined capacity of over 245,000 megaliters, which would not be enough as of now to meet the population demands of the wastewater production for 2050, which is estimated to be over 311,000 megaliters. So what we propose is to increase the Pine Creek wastewater treatment plant's capacity from 100 megaliters per day to 700 megaliters per day after the year 2020, and we base that off Calgary's suggestion to do the same thing as well for one of their plants, and that would bring us to a combined capacity of over 464,000 megaliters, which would be enough to meet the demands of 2050. For the waste management and recycling sector in 2050, the current target for the city is 7% waste diversion rate by the year 2025 from its 2015 base levels, and it has similar programs similar to Toronto, such as the Blue Card, Black and Green Card programs for recyclable, landfill, and organic food waste. But our proposed target is kind of ambitious. What we suggested is to have a zero waste strategy by 2050. And to achieve that, we recommended residential education programs, commercial material reuse and minimization programs, as well as new technologies such as the Orchid design, which is a Toronto-based design, and that uses aerobic digestion technology to turn organic food waste into liquid water, which can be drained out to the sewer within 24 hours. And we calculated that 119 machines would need to be implemented by 2050 in Calgary citywide to be able to meet the zero waste diversion rate.
So putting our designs together, in terms of GHG emission comparison, we considered 4 different scenarios: the 2017, 2050 business as usual, the 2050 city target, and the 2050 plan. So on a projected basis, the reduction based on the 2017 for the city target is 88%, and based on our plans, the reduction would be 95%. So the graph to the right is a more visualized version of the numbers. And we can see that our design would be able to achieve 7% higher in terms of efficiency in reducing GHG.
So comparing the 2017 and the 2050 urban metabolism diagrams, we can see that in 2050, energy would be mainly supplied by electricity, which is 93% of the total energy, and as you can see, natural gas is zero, as Claire already mentioned. For the greenhouse gas emission by each sector, solid waste again shows zero. That's because of the zero waste strategy that we proposed. For wastewater, however, from the 2017 to the 2050, there's an increase. That's because we did not recommend any new infrastructure implementation for the city. We just recommended increasing the capacity of one of the treatment plants. For residential, the GHG emissions would be decreased by 98%. For commercial and institutional, is a whopping 99.3%, and for transportation, it's going to be 83% decrease in GHG emissions. And for the 2017 landfill and recycled compared to the 2050, as you can see, it was 66% landfill and 32% recycled before. Now it's going to be 100% recycled and 0% landfill.
In terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, our design has touched on 3 major design aspects, including transportation, waste management, and neighborhood and land use design. So through improving specific indicators under each target, our plans can collectively provide more sustainable transit system. It can reduce environmental impacts through waste management, and it can also provide green and public spaces within the city.
So in summary, the City of Calgary has a lot of current initiatives that do show progress, that do show sustainable measures, but they don't look at the year 2050 or beyond. And therefore, our recommended design strategies is essential in meeting the demands of the growing populace in 2050. And we believe that with the successful implementation of whatever we suggested, is going to bring Calgary to become a more robust city by 2050. Thank you.